Well, happy Friday, everybody. How y'all doing? Hey, that's so glad to see you as I'm getting here and getting everything put together. And hey, the bus is leaving the station, right? So good to see you. Hope you are having a good day. Fabulous, peaceful, serene, nothing missing, nothing broken, and with abundance of favor. There we go. So what's up, everybody? So good to see. Hello, Pingritti. William, you got the answer right. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Elderberry, what's up? Deborah, good to see you, my dear. Scotty Boy, good to see you as always. Bernadette and Purgatory Traveler, what's cooking? Rick, good to see you, Lost in Space. And shout out to Gilbert. I think he's coming back from Sturgis. Man, that's core strength, man. It's like endurance. So anyway, what else is happening? Not in an asylum. Hey, what about the title? And I took a little deviation. I know the itinerary was for us to continue the study on the palm. And by the way, your palm, think about this. If you could speak the language, wonder how much better we would all be. I mean, is this the ship in the bottle? Did we send ourselves notes? Now, maybe somehow in the transition, we forgot the language. Well, not completely. No, we'll pick up on Monday on that one. The reason why I deviated and took this detour was that because, folks, it's nuts out there. Man, look at hey, Nina, what's up? Good to see you, darling. Brandon, hello. Our palms are very powerful. Ain't that the truth? Oh, we could get so deep into that. But, I thought that I would take a little deviation. And, I saw something with Ben Davidson over at Suspicious Observers, and I think he just crossed 700,000. Way to go, Ben. Lynn and I met Ben. Man, my goodness. I think it was 2015 in Denver. Just a small little group. But anyway, Ben's contention, and it's backed up by our current knowledge of science and observation, that we're that generation. Maybe the baby boomers won't or could see it through, should. But nevertheless, most of the folks alive today will see this repeat cataclysm. And it was part in his presentation that triggered something within my thought process. And he gave a list of everything that, is happening today. We seem to have lost our moral compass as a species. Our species is deeply into deceit. I mean, if you were a higher intelligence and out in space and coming across this planet, you most likely would be smart enough and advanced enough in your technology that you could watch their television, watch their radio waves, watch this. And you would have to step back and come to the conclusion that either we're a species that is flawed inherently by our very makeup, that Homo sapiens are murderous, violent, deceptive. They prefer war over peace. In fact, they have been more at war than they have at peace. Homo sapiens use deception. They thrive on the pain of other Homo sapiens. They seek to enslave. So, I mean, if you're a non-terrestrial biological form, you'd have to look at this and go, Something wrong with these people. Because they got the same history. They one would think they would read the same books, get the idea of what's happening now that everything's on the net. And it's very sad. And something that Ben said that, is the inevitability. We as a species, as a living life form, by all indications, we have only one thing and one thing that we know is coming for us. And that is the human race is going to go insane. Virtually no one's protected. You have to be miles underground and stay there. You couldn't come back up near the surface. Right now, we are in the beginning throes of being diminished in our cognitive abilities, no fault of our own. These cosmic rays that are increasing and only going to increase as this magnetic excursion continues. And our planet has experienced this before. We as a species have experienced this before. I guess the good news is that it appears that we as a species, at least the genus of man, have had this encounter before. And it seems that we have survived it. But the thing about it is it kicks us down. I mean, it kicks us right in the gonads. I mean, we're down. We have to start all over again. Science has not yet caught up to the full effect of what cosmic rays do, but we do know this. It makes us go batshit crazy. And it's very evident that we're seeing this today. So that got me into this thing. Then look in the past. And Alexander the Great came up, and I started reviewing his life again. And it's amazing. The more you go down a particular path, and if you keep an open perspective, try to not allow the biases and the prejudices and the perceptions that were taught to you as you grew up become more independent thought. I look at it now and I go, something's up here. And William, you got the answer right. Alexander, when you read his life, wow. I mean, Philip II, we're going to study about this, his mother, Olympus, and her bloodline goes all the way back, as she is I believe she was a direct descendant. Don't quote me on this. We're going to read this ourselves. That from Hercules. And if you look at Alexander's life, there was someone else's life that was patterned after his, the Messiah. But wait a minute, that was his name in the unspoken names. His father, again, was king of Macedonia. And, it's interesting. So I thought that we would take a little trip down this. How is everybody doing again? Rick, good to see you. Brian, 1958. What's up? Good to see you, Daddy Rabbit. Know the author, most important thing in language. Yeah, there's a lot. So let's just check this out. We're just going to, it's Friday. Gogo, how are you doing? All the way from Croatia. Morgan Snow, how you doing? Yeah, there's just a lot going on. I mean, this thing with this, and we're going to discuss it more because I believe Ben is right. there's just something that isn't right with people. And it's amazing. I don't know, is it just me? But I tell you, it's like you're living in two spatial dimensions within the same time construct. It's like, that this isn't right. No, 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 no. Something's going on here. And I was out meditating this morning and on this subject, thinking about Alexander the Great, what he had accomplished, and we're going to get at because he accomplished a lot. He may have been the last true, what I call human God, particularly of the sapiens. I mean, you can look at his bust and everything else, and it's amazing that this guy, I mean, he was Adonis, wasn't he? Yeah. But anyway, getting back to the cosmic rays as we close out on that, I just shake my head. I mean, I see perspectives of people at such extremes. The polarization of politics, the polarization of social media, the polarization of religion. Hey, right, folks. There are no absolutes, absolutely. There are laws and there are principles, but there's still that quirk, you know? I mean, where the hell do they go? They tell us they come from a different place, a different reality, a different dimension. And they have the ability to come into ours, but then to leave. I wonder if that's a potential escape route. I mean, aren't we made up of molecules? So they tell us. So if I'd have to get smaller than my molecule in order to become a quark, and isn't it written somewhere that the smallest rules the largest, the strongest? What do I know? What do I know? Hey, Mary, how are you doing, darling? Good to see you. Paradox Fossils, good to see you as well. So let's just have a little look-see. I got a couple of things in here that I thought that I would pull up. Here's one, and I think you'll really dig this. So Alexander, I mean, this dude, man, he had it all. And I think he knew it. But anyway, he was born in the year 3036 BC. And according to his astronomical chart, he was born July 1st at, I think, 9:28 a.m. Now, tell me, folks, I'm going to digress here a second. I can't understand how we've got this dude, and we know exactly when he was born. No imaginary date. We have extensive records. We got bust. We got murals. We've got a lot of different things. I mean, this guy was either he was completely narcissistic or he was perceived as a god. We have his writings. And you're going to find out that this dude was more a philosopher than he was anything else. Wow. Anyway, so the 20-year-old Alexander succeeded his father, Philip, as king of Macedonian, a rural Balkan people. They were white. Within a decade or so, a tale spread that Zeus, and not Philip, was his father. Now, doesn't this have connotations of Noah? You know, it was said that Noah was really birthed from God. This tale has no improbable is no more improbable than what happened in the meantime. Alexander and his army had overthrown the Persian Empire, which stretched from Asia Minor to India by way of Egypt. Folks, this is where it was at. If you want to take the Western world and just throw it back 2,500 years ago, you would find yourself most likely in what we call the Indus Valley. It was a happening place. We're going to see this. It wasn't this idea of them living in huts. Anyway, bigger things have happened, such as the spread of Christianity and Islam, but more slowly. And by the way, Christianity and Islam is Hellenistic in their foundation. I mean, Alexander so moved the rest of the culture of humankind. I mean, the Hellenism is what today we see as modern day religion. It said it took several centuries for Jesus followers to spread his message across Rome and the Roman Empire. Followers of the Prophet Muhammad fought for nearly 200 years to spread Islam from Arabia to Spain to Central Asia. It says, whatever we may think of Alexander, whether great or only lucky, a civilized or psychopath, we do not regard him as a religious leader. We do not expect that much religion from a military commander. Before deciding when to cross the English Channel in 1944, General Eisenhower consulted meteorologists, not diviners. He encouraged his men with prayerful words, but he accepted enemy surrenders without ceremony and assigned the burial of the dead to the chaplains. Not Alexander. Alexander depended on diviners, scrutinizing sheep livers to learn when to cross the Hellespont and the Indus. Along with prayerful words, Alexander made a display of hacking sacrificial animals to death. When enemies surrounded to him, he often obliged them to perform a ritual of supplication. Rather than assign the dead to chaplains, Alexander conducted funerals himself. Every dead comrade could turn into a friendly or unfriendly ghost, a being to be pleased or placated. Religion was much more than these religions. Temples were also treasuries, so religion affected war finance. Many rituals were very public events, so religion affected diplomacy and the administration of conquered territories. Religion provided legitimacy, so it affected the solidarity felt among soldiers and the loyal subjects. Religion dominated warfare because gods dominated everything. The Indus River was a god, and Zeus controlled the weather. Zeus also watched over supplicants, and he blessed a special religious fraternity called the Cult of Companions, to which Alexander and his subordinates belonged. Alexander claimed Hercules and Zeus as ancestors, Hercules from his mother. In this sort of world, atheism was virtually impossible, and religious freedom was a risk no community would take. If the gods abandoned a community, an eclipse might pluck the sun or moon out of the sky, a hostile river might leap out of its bed, or an earthquake pitch a city into the sea. All ancient commanders played religious parts, but Alexander played the most. He uttered or inspired the most prayers and made the most sacrifices, and he did so in the most places, languages, and rituals. We may think of him as the Pope, the Holy Roman Emperor, and the head of the Church of England all in one. Piety did not make Alexander overly scrupulous. As a priest, he mostly observed festival days on which fighting was forbidden. But he sometimes found religious reasons to ignore festivals, days, and fight anyway. Told by a seer to defeat the enemy by the end of the month, he lengthened the month. Told not to sacrifice a temple, he besieged the city where the temple stood and preserved until the capture the temple and made the sacrifice, even though, or just because, the city was Tyre, the Manhattan of the ancient world. Wow. When Alexander used religion astutely, he and his army prospered. At the start of his reign in Macedon, he rallied his late father's companions, and in neighboring Greece, he gained kudos by refurbishing the temples and sponsoring festivals. In Egypt, he performed the ceremonies needed by the pharaoh and thus became a god as well as a priest. Babylon surrendered to him partly because he agreed to become a sacred king of another kind. All over the Levant, he demoralized enemies, classified subjects by worshiping as the locals did. When Alexander neglected or mismaligned religion, he and his army suffered. The farther he got from the Mediterranean, where he knew some of the gods and had a feel for others, the less skilled he displayed, the more men he killed or lost. Iran, where he refused to be crowned or even destroyed a shrine resisted against him, mounted. In India, the Buddhists, the Jains, the Hindus baffled him, and he killed them by the hundreds of thousands. Then his officers, men regarded as champions of the religious kind, rebelled against him and forced him to abandon his campaigns of conquest. So that is a different side of an equation that we had. Quite frankly, you hear about these conquests, but rarely do we ever hear about other things that was associated with that. So we continue. This is a really cool document because it's a perspective of Alexander that kind of goes a little more contrary than what we have seen. Give me 1 second here, folks, as I try to pull this up. There we go. Okay, so the wars, we're going to find out some things as I pull this up. So this is the area that Alexander conquered. Today, he would be a world conqueror. Again, we have the bust. We have the mosaic reliefs. We know what this guy looked like. And yet we can't have one picture of a person called Jesus. I don't understand. Jerusalem back in the turn of the century, the first century, was a really happening place, pretty cosmopolitan. Estimated to be 500,000 or more inhabitants. That's a pretty crowded city. It was, despite what the unfortunately the biblical narrative tries to describe Jerusalem. Jerusalem was kind of like a London. It was a happening place. It wasn't all religious zealots. Hellenism was alive and well in Jerusalem, and this is what gets me. It drew artisans, poets, writers. But something ain't right here. So in this whole thing, give me 1 second, folks, she says, wait a minute. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm back. Sorry about that. I had to take a little detour. So anyway, it has still been one of those things that I can't understand for myself, is exactly why no pictures? Why no writings? Now, this I'm just kind of having a little side conversation is that, it's said that, if you're going to believe in something, demand proof of your belief. Just don't take it because someone else taught you that. Because the truth is, they're just as ignorant. All they've done is propagated the ignorance. So again, we can get a picture of a dude we know exactly. We can read his letters. We can read what he wrote. And yet we got this cat named Jesus who no one apparently took any pictures. No one drew. No one made a bust. No one made a mosaic. And apparently never wrote. Never wrote a single word. That's the kind of stuff that I go, something ain't right here. So anyway, the age of discovery or the age of exploration. What a great way to go into life. Part of the early modern period and largely overlapping the age of sail was a period from approximately the 14th century to the 17th century, during which seafarers from a number of European countries explored, colonized, and conquered the regions of the globe. Now, this wasn't done the first time. We know back in the year 330 BC, Alexander the Great conquers part of Central Asia and parts of northwestern Pakistan. Well, that was a big deal. That was the Silk Road. I mean, pepper. You like pepper? It was expensive. So, more about Alexander. In the time of Alexander, there were more city countries than counties as we understand them. And the definition of a city is not, it's refined. The debate is, does every city have a wall, an enclosure? Well, most of them back in those days did. Why? It was the standard architecture for protection. It says a study of the ancient world, a city is generally defined as a large populated urban center of commerce and administration with a system of laws and usually regulated means of sanitation. Population of the settlement, height of buildings, density of buildings, population, presence of some kind of sewer system, level of administrative government, presence of walls or fortifications, geographical area of the settlement, or whether the settlement was called a city in antiquity and fits at least one of the above qualifications. Now, I think it's always weird to understand that the cities, I remember years ago, I was teaching on the fact of the ancient architecture of cities. They had sewer systems. Yeah. I mean, people had to do their business, It says in the ancient world, very often a city describes an urban center of dense population and a certain pattern of buildings spreading out from a central religious complex, such as a temple, though frustratingly, this could sometimes apply equally well to a village or a settlement. The word city derives from the word Latin, civitas, although urban development predates Rome. The first were developed in the regions known as Mesopotamia between 45 and 3100 BCE. The city of Uruk, today considered the oldest in the world. You see, that's what gets me. We know this. Yet, you will not see in any seminary, you will not hear in any religious teaching of any kind, the Samaritans. Why? Because the Samaritans basically defunct your whole religion. They were there first. And if your God wasn't listed in their pantheon of gods, guess what? Your God don't exist, or your God is simply made up, as most of them are. All right. Now, in some places of the world, they'd have my head for that. But here's the fact. The city of Uruk. Abram came from the city of Ur. We know exactly where that is. Today considered the oldest in the world, followed by the city of Eridu, Babylos, Jericho, Damascus, Jerusalem, Sidon, Laang, Athens and Argos, Galileo, and I think is that Versani. All of these cities are certainly ancient, are located in regions which have been populated from a very early date. The population of ancient cities, depending upon which definition of city is used, different sharply from what might be considered proper for a city in the modern day. Population increases led to suburbanization and the spread of the settlements beyond the original boundaries. This debate also includes whether a settlement needs to have a wall around it or truly to be just simply called a city. Now, this is an interesting picture here. This is the Caponic Way, the main street of ancient Alexander. I mean, come on, folks. I mean, look at that. I would dare say that most of the modern cities lack this aspect of this sophistication of architecture, the laws and understanding how to move people, commerce, distribution centers that would allow the food, again, fresh water, sewer. Amazing. I mean, you look today at modern day, let's say Portland, Oregon, Seattle, San Francisco. We've regressed, folks. We've not progressed. We are so far below our ancestors' knowledge that sometimes it's pathetic. All right, so let's get more into it talks about the walled cities were common throughout Mesopotamia. The most famous and today probably the most controversial city in the ancient world is Babylon. It remains controversial for the same reason as its fame in that the city is featured predominantly and negatively and so many of the biblical narratives. You see, that's the problem. You've got this mind virus. You know, let me tell you, what I have been able to understand about Babylon from an esoteric point of view, from an occultic perspective, that's where it was at, baby. I mean, that is much of the knowledge many of us are seeking. It existed. It was taught. Not today. Anyway, talks about Alexander was more than a conqueror. He was also a builder and the founder of cities. Now, I just read to you one perspective of this narrative that tries to make Alexander this heathen. You see, and the problem when you just read one source, you find out that, wait a minute, there's something else going on here. Because Alexander, in his truest nature of what we'll find out, was a philosopher. Yeah. Let's see. In fact, during his decade-long campaign in the East, he founded over 70 new cities. Unsurprisingly, the young conqueror named them after himself, except for the one in India, which he named after his beloved horse. I think that is Basilius. Loved his horse. There's actually a reason for it. The story is amazing. As I read that, I went, wow. Anyway, Alexander's towns trace the path of his army's progress through the areas of present-day Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, I know it, and Pakistan. A lot of stands there. Can you stand it? Most of them are by now reduced to mere ruins or became the foundations of present-day cities. The most famous of them is undoubtedly the city of Alexander, found in Egypt. Alexandria ad Agibion was designed to be the capital of his empire. Yet it was not to be. Following Alexander's death in Babylon, the empire quickly collapsed in the war of his successors. They call that the Daochi. However, Alexandria retained its role as the capital of the mighty Ptolemaic kingdoms, one of many Hellenistic kingdoms that emerged after the bloody wars. Alexandria outlived the Ptolemies, remaining the intellectual and economic powerhouse of Rome, Egypt. Only in the Middle Ages did the place lose its importance. However, the town was revived in the 19th century, and today Alexandria City is Egypt's second largest and one of the most important Mediterranean cities. Alexander's great, his father was Philip II of Mesopotamia, did not expect to ever become king. Yet, after an unexpected deaths of his two older brothers, Philip suddenly found himself the king of a struggling nation. Situated in the north of the frequently warring Greek city-states, Macedonia became the target of frequent raids. In only 1 year, Philip drastically reformed the Macedonian army and turned the fortunes of the once backwater nation. In the year 356 BC, Philip's fourth wife, Olympias, gave birth to Alexander III of Macedon, better known as Alexander the Great. He became king at the age of 20 and had conquered most of the known world by the time of his sudden death at 32. During his brief but eventful reign, he created a vast empire that stretched from Greece and Egypt all the way to India. Yet the young ruler's dream of further conquest were cut short by his unexpected death in Babylon in the year 323. Following the conqueror's passing, his huge empire disintegrated in the wars waged by his successors. Even so, Alexander's lasting legacy, the Hellenistic world, this is key to all of this, endured, influencing virtually every society and culture up to the present day. Without Hellenism, again, you would not have Christianity, you would not have Islam, you would not, and I reserve even probably many of the religions coming out of India as well. Some could argue that Judaism itself was influenced by Hellenism, and there's good evidence for that because that's exactly what Josephus wrote about, particularly in the Jew Wars. And it's my contention today is that we are deceived into much of our belief systems. We cover up the past, or we'll go back so far where you realize you have to make up some shit in order to validate it. Yeah, anyway. It's like, geez, stir it all up. That's what I say. So let's go on. So check this out. So his army, this is called the Macedonian phalanx, with the Caesarists deployed as imagined by what they've read. This is where you get the 300 Spartans. Wow, this is some badass stuff. I got to say, they were like anywhere from 13 to 21 feet long. Gave them a distinct advantage where if you had an enemy charging either by foot or by horse. By the time, and we'll actually read a little bit more about this. It says Alexander the Great's name is widely known. Few, however, know that before he became immortalized in history as the Great, the young ruler was known as Alexander III of Macedon. Alexander was born again in the year 356 to King Philip II of Macedon and his fourth wife, Olympias. Philip was a member of the ancient Argead dynasty, which traced its origins to the mythical period in ancient Greece. According to tradition, the dynasty's founder, King Serenus, was also of the descendants of Hercules. While she was not a Macedonian herself, Olympias, too, was the member of an ancient royal lineage. Alexander's mother was the daughter of the king of Molossans, an ancient Greek tribe from Epirus. Olivia's illustrious lineage did not stop there. Her family claimed relation to none other than the Trojan War hero, the legendary Achilles. Thus, Alexander could trace his origins to some of the most famous figures from Greek history and mythology. No wonder the young prince felt that he was predestined for greatness. Wow. Now, he inherited a lot from his dad. You know, his daddy is the one that actually developed much of the warfare Alexander used in his conquest. Said, although his son's legacy nowadays overshadows his name, King Philip II of Macedon laid the foundation for the army that would help Alexander conquer the known world. Under Philip's reign, Macedonia grew from a peripheral kingdom to a military powerhouse, becoming the leading power in ancient Greece. To achieve such a feat, Philip II used diplomacy, marriage alliances, and most importantly, he reformed the army, making it the deadliest military force of the period. Again, it seems like no matter what attainment of enlightenment we seem to get, it seems to be more individual than it is collectively. Because, yeah. Says at the center of the Macedonian military was an infantry formation known as the phalanx. It was a block of infantry packed tightly together, with each soldier in the formation carrying a 4 to 6.5 meter long, that's 13 to 21 feet, pike called the caesura, roughly twice the length of the pikes used by the Greeks. The caesura gave the Macedonian infantry an extra reach before the pikes blades of an opposing force could reach them. The phalanx was deployed to hold off hostile infantry, while the cavalry, under Philip's invention, went on the offensive. The companion cavalry, elite mounted troops formed by the Macedonian aristocracy, was one of the first shock cavalry units in history. You know, it was a big deal to go to war. Aristotle was his tutor. Aristotle teaching young Alexander. This is a depiction of this. It says, at the presumptive heir, Philip spared no expense to give his son the best education possible. He set his heart on Aristotle himself, but there was a rift there. Philip had razed Aristotle's hometown of Steigeria to the ground in an earlier campaign. Hate when that happens. Philip offered to fund the comprehensive rebuilding of Steigeria, and Aristotle agreed to tutor young Alexander. He taught the young heir from the age of 13 to 16 and instilled in Alexander a love of philosophy, literature, science, and naturalism. While on campaign to foreign lands in later years, Alexander frequently sent letters and specimens to his old tutor. You know, again, I just asked the simple question. You know, I've had some people saying, you know, how can you walk away from your religion? This is why, because you can't produce to me one letter of the supposed thing you're worshiping. Can it write? We've already said the problem with their God is a old white dude, again, who never figured out what a razor was, much less a comb and a pair of scissors. All right. Philip did not only teach his son the art of war. As a Macedonian prince, Alexander was given the best possible education in history, philosophy, literature, algebra, and other important subjects. The royal court at Pele in present-day Greece was filled with the brightest minds of the age, brought to teach the future conqueror. Among them was none other than Aristotle, the famous philosopher. Aristotle had yet to make a name for himself at that time, but he was known as Plato's pupil. Thus, Philip II invited Aristotle to teach his son, promising to rebuild the philosopher's home in Steigeria. 3 years of Aristotle's teaching left a lasting impact on young Alexander's inspiring lifelong love of philosophy. Wow. I mean, this has got this whole divine thing surrounding it. Isn't it odd that we don't read the words? They're not taught. Alexander, why? They want to make him, this maniac, this bloodthirsty conqueror. No. According to a legend, Alexander, while still a prince, met Dionaeus the Cynic, an eccentric philosopher known for his rejection of worldly possessions and for sleeping in a large clay jar. How many of you knew that? I didn't. Alexander asked the philosopher if there was anything he could do for him. Yes, Dionaeus said. Stand aside, you're blocking my son. Apparently, the meeting made such an impression on Alexander, who was quoted to saying, "If I were not Alexander, I would be Dionaeus." Alexander's interest in philosophy never faded. While in India, he took to repose from war, engaging instead in lengthy discussions with the physicists, naked philosophers from the Hindu or Jain religions, who, like Dionaeus, rejected human vanity and clothing. You gotta dig these people, man. I mean, I'm right there with them. Yeah. And if you've ever been in a nudist camp, in my youth, yes, there's a certain freedom letting it all hang out. You don't play the games. I'm just saying. And the thought it occurred to me is like, why couldn't we do this today? Why couldn't we come together naked philosophy? I mean, there's something to that. There really is. I can't see the chat room, but I'm telling you, this could be a whole new trend. It could save the world. Come and join us. We're naked philosophers. Our motto could be, there's nothing to hide here. I mean, you really think about it, you can strip a person without all their clothes, but yet you can't see inside. That's where the deception and all the rest of the turmoil is. It's usually not with the body. I like that. Naked philosophers. We've missed it, folks. I mean, maybe this is the nirvana that we've been looking for. I love it. It says Alexander the Great was reportedly an intelligent and precocious child. He charmed foreign ambassadors and won a bet with his father that he could ride an unruly stallion. He was only 10 at the time and won the horse, which he once again named Bucellas. I think I said that right. If not, someone will tell me. The horse became his trusted companion and war horse. When Bucellas passed away in India, Alexander named the city after his beloved friend. It's interesting because animals it's amazing. They are so much like us. They have emotions, they dream. Yeah. And horses, they're majestic. It's something with many of the modern day religions, whether it's, all three of the Abrahamic religions and even most of the Far East religions, horses are highly esteemed. The majesty. Dated a girl who was really good at barrel racing. Yeah. Anyway, It says Alexander's favorite book was the Iliad. Considering his illustrious ancestry and high education, it's not surprising that Alexander was an avid reader of great classics. He was particularly fond of Homer's works, the Iliad and the Odyssey. According to the first century Greek biographer Plutarch, Alexander carried a copy of the Iliad and annotated by his tutor Aristotle. Wow. Whenever he went. Plutarch said that Alexander considered the Iliad a perfect portable treasure of all military virtue and knowledge. Allegedly, Alexander slept with the Iliad under his pillow. His favorite hero was Achilles, the legendary warrior. After all, Achilles was one of his ancient ancestors from his mother's side. And like his childhood hero, Alexander too would take the Greek into fight against the East. Unlike Achilles, though, who perished in the Trojan War, Alexander would triumph, toppling one of the mightiest empires of the East and creating a new and powerful realm that today still exists. Rome, you just look at all the empires that have come and gone. You know, and I contend there may be, and so if extraterrestrials exist, I wonder if they were around in Alexander's time. It certainly seems this, because we didn't understand how things fly, doesn't mean that those things up there didn't understand it. And if they did, and if they're long-lived species, you wonder why they would even be here. They can see the handwriting on the wall. At the current state of humanity right today, there's very little hope for us. Very little hope. I think the Vegas odds is that we're less than the 1 percentile of us making it as a modern day society and culture. We are literally on the precipice of collapse. So anyway, if you want this, I have it. It's a great, time isn't long enough to really get into the story of this remarkable man. Again, all the works that we have, the bust, the images, tell me, if you were going to have a god, would you not have a god that was actual human than some unseen, no one can define? The exploits of Jesus, we know, were actually written by the exploits of, and I completely forgot the name. It was like right there. Come on, Vespasian. And, you know, these people, if you read many of the philosophers of the time, Philo came from Alexandria. And I can't help but these people, these private societies, these private, whatever you want to call them, groups, they shared a common knowledge. And it's very evident to me that much of this knowledge is today what we would call modern day occultism. I mean, look at this, folks. And like, again, if you want this, these cities, the architecture, the way that they were built, how they were built, we can't do that today. We don't have the artisans. And the artisans are the carpenters, the stonemasons. We can't work with our hand today. And the fact is, here in the United States, why our economy is collapsing is because there aren't enough blue-collar workers. There isn't enough out there that know the trades. Because, wow, I'm above that. No, it's a gift to humanity. We can't do this today. Why, can you imagine the snowflake generation actually creating something like this? No, they'd rather be in their basements playing their video games. And this is why we're heading for defeat and doom. But you also get the whole point that it's war, it's conquest. Even if the benefits of war and the conquest and the slaughtering of other humans leads into a period of enlightenment. The problem is with enlightenment, it didn't stay. The Dark Ages were called the Dark Ages for a reason. All right. So much for the Friday, I think I'm going to call Fridays the Philosopher Corner. But anyway. Yeah, Blazin, I would agree with you. There's so much to it. And and where I live, I mean, you don't dare say something like this in public because, you're immediately ostracized. You don't believe in Jesus? No. What the hell's wrong with you? Blue collars, true blue collars can't spell. I love that. So Emperor Rex says, I'm a carpenter, electrician, and more. Yeah. Although I don't like the electricity part of it. But yeah, I learned a trade, was really good at it. It's a master journeyman. Still do it today. But anyway, I don't know. When I look at this, and I'm just going, it's just a small, simple thing here. Validation of existence. And the fact of the matter is, we come up, and I've said this before, and as they have uncovered the road from Rome leading into Jerusalem, they were just like us. They got hungry. There were entrepreneurs. There were those farmers and others that, set up, their what would be considered the modern day food truck, little cantinas. And they would sell the food, the beverages. And the thing about it is, where you have people who are traveling, and, you may have a little, hostel there that you could stay by. The thing that they uncovered was not a picture of a Christ, of a God, but of a pair of tits. Yeah. It seems that the most important thing was to leave graffiti. I mean, sorry, ladies, a pair of breasts. I'm just saying. But see, they could draw a picture of a woman's breast, but they couldn't draw a picture of the supposed miracle guy walking around, walking on water, calling thunder down from the heaven. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Hey, Ruby, how you doing, darling? Good to see you, Lilith. Hello, Aaron. Troublesome. Yeah, jack of all trades, but a master of none. I've heard that. Grace, how you doing? Monkey experiment. Yeah. I mean, hey, what's that, Joyce? See, a psychotic bloodthirsty. Here we go. It's just crazy. I mean, it really is. I mean, we just spent this whole hour on a subject that we've all covered before, just maybe a few other different perspectives, but why wouldn't that be God? The God of the Bible does the same thing. He had the armies of Israel. Hell, he had one of his angels, supposedly Gabriel, coming down and, slaying 180,000 men. Apparently went into Egypt and slew the babies. Didn't have any problem with that. War. The United States, in God we trust, means we entrust in the God of war. There ain't no divine God, ain't no holy God, ain't no God of the Bible. The United States of America believes in war. We worship the God of war. We sacrifice our men and our women to this God. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, they ain't gonna like that. They ain't gonna like that. Oh, no, 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 no. You can't be saying that shit. Grace, thank you. We do love philosophy. It's what I was destined to do. I'm fulfilling my destiny. My whole life has been as an initiate. Now I'm an adapt, you know? Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much. You gotta love it. Chris says, I love peace. Yeah, I think we do. Because I think if we've been through this washing machine before, I think we were the peacemakers back then. We were the rebels and the disruptors. Oh, yeah. That group of naked philosophers over there. You got to watch those folks over there. I mean, yeah. just saying. That's all. Thank you, Lost in Space. Yeah. Quiet thoughts for the weekend in your meditation time. I'm telling you, we should start a group called the Naked Philosophers. I've got to write that down. I mean, the naked, it has a certain thing to it, doesn't it? Well, what are you? Well, I'm actually a part of the Naked Philosophers. They're not going to ask you anything beyond that. Now, if a person does, that they're seeking knowledge. Well, exactly what do y'all do? Oh, wouldn't you like to know? Okay, folks, thanks for watching. Thank you for hitting the like button. See y'all here on Monday for sure. So I think Fridays are going to be the Philosopher Corner. We'll just, we'll have fun. You want to come on and talk about philosophy? See, Scotty Boy's all over it. Naked philosophy. See, nothing's up my sleeve. I like that, you see? I'm telling you, we could build a whole movement around that. All right. Thank you, Brian. Favor right back at you, brother. Appreciate it. Deborah, much love, everyone. We'll see y'all. We'll see each other on Monday. I'm telling you, we got something going on here. Say it's the Soul Tribe, but now we can come in. Well, we're a derivative of the Soul Tribe. We are the Naked Philosophers.